I want to share something with you this morning before I begin my lesson. It's really a sweet thing, and that'll sound strange to you when you hear what I'm about to say. Joyce Pieper called me early this morning, and our brother Bill died this morning at 6 o'clock. And the reason that I say that that's a sweet thing is because, as many of you know, a couple of months ago, I went to visit Bill. And for those of you who don't know who I'm talking about, our brother Bill is in his mid-80s. And in the years that I've been here, he and I have formed kind of an interesting relationship. I won't go into all of whatever, but anyway, it was kind of a neat relationship that the two of us had. And for a long time, I've had on my heart that I needed to go and sit down and talk with him about his salvation. And if you've ever been through that, and I suspect some of you have, there's 1,000 reasons why you don't do it. And you think about it and you pray about it, and then you almost go do it, and something comes up and you don't go and do it. And so here a couple of months ago, it was really heavy on my heart, and I was thinking, the day is going to come, and Brother Bill's been sick for some time, and I thought, the day is going to come, and it's probably not very far off when he's going to finish his walk here. And I'm going to really feel guilty for the rest of my life if I don't go and sit down and just talk to him. So I did. And the result was that he was baptized that day. And we won't go into all the details of it, but it was a really special, special day. And so when I got that call this morning, I have to tell you, it brought tears to my eyes. And part of it was on my behalf. Because I think, what if I had not? What if I had let something keep me from going and sitting down and talking to him? So I'm saying that to you, that if you have somebody on your heart that you're concerned about their salvation, don't keep putting it off. Go and sit down and talk to them. And you don't have to push them into any kind of corner. Just let them know that you're concerned about them. And is there anything that they need to do? And you might be surprised. And so it's a sweet day when one of God's children goes home. And so I know that Joyce and her family are watching, and so our prayers go out to you. And we love you, and we care about, and we hurt with you over this separation that has now taken place, but we also rejoice together. And the church said, I'm shifting gears radically right here. I'll make a statement. People who do not want to be helped cannot be helped. I have a good friend, Sid Lewis, and Sid may be watching this morning. I don't know. They have watched the streaming. Sid and I used to do a fair amount of quail hunting together. In fact, written on the wall of his shop, as you go inside on the wall, are a record of all the quail that we got over a fairly significant number of years. And it's kind of fun that we go back and look at those figures. And for those of you who've never had the joy and the pleasure of hunting, or it doesn't appeal to you, let me inform you that the real joy of quail hunting is the bird dog and watching the dog work. And each one of the dogs has his own particular personality quirks. And a male pointer bird dog is one of the most stubborn creatures that God created. Unlike the human species, in which the female is the most stubborn. Boy, if you hadn't laughed at that, I was going to go out the back door and wasn't going to be seen. One of the best dogs that we had was a male pointer by the name of Tex. And stubbornness may have had something to do with why he was named Tex, I don't know. But one of Tex's personality traits was Tex liked to run. And when you got to where you were going to hunt and you put him on the ground, then he started running, and he ran until he found birds. And then if you've ever seen a bird dog, when he finds a covey of quail, it's just incredible. God put it in them. You can't teach it. Their body locks up, and they just freeze, and they don't move anything. They're just there. They're locked up right in front of those birds. In fact, Tex liked to run so much that for some period of time, we would stop about 2 miles from the place where we were going to bird hunt, and we would put Tex out and we would tie a link of logging chain onto Tex's collar. And then he would follow the truck, and we would drive about 20 miles an hour for about 2 miles, and Tex would run beside the truck, dragging that heavy chain. We just needed to get the sharp edge off of him so that he would be a little bit calm when we got to where we wanted to hunt. And so it's normally a good thing that the dog is going to hunt hard until he finds birds, but the problem was that when Tex ran, he might find birds, and they might be a half a mile or more away, and he might be in tall grass, and you couldn't find Tex. And he's locked up on the birds, and you can call all you want to and whistle all you want to, and he's not moving. He's locked up on the birds, and he's going to stay there until either the birds flush or you get there and flush the birds. And he will stay as long as it takes. In fact, on more than one occasion, late in the evening, we've been hunting, and Tex locked up on birds somewhere, and we couldn't find him, and we spent the last hour of the day hunting for him, and it finally got too dark. And so we'd go back to the pickup, and we'd take a hunting vest off and throw it on the ground, and we would go home and go to sleep and come back the next day, and next morning, and Tex would be on that hunting coat. He would come back to it after he had somewhere during the night the birds had flushed, and he would come back. So we decided that we would buy a shock collar for Tex. And a shock collar grabs his attention, all right? And it makes him stop what he's doing, running, and he will stop and turn and look at you to see what you want. And I've often thought that there might be a real market for that for kids. But as long as you were diligent to make sure that you kept Tex within range of the shock collar, then you could stop him whenever he got out there, right at the edge of the range. You want a dog to hunt within sight of you so you can see what he's doing when he finds birds. And so as long as you would be real diligent, and we would for an hour or so to make sure that if he got right out the edge, we would get his attention, call him back in, and start back over again. As long as you did that, everything was fine. But Tex was smart, and he would keep pushing that envelope to the very edge. He learned about how far away that shock collar would get his attention. And he would always work out to the edge of that and stay there for a little while to see if you were going to do anything. But then whenever you made the mistake of allowing Tex to get over the top of a hill at the edge of the range of the collar, then Tex would look back at you with a big grin, and he would head out running, just as hard as he could go. I've thought about that a lot, and we've laughed about it, and been not so laughing about it at different times. And I realize that some of my philosophy that I have in life is centered around things that I observe in nature. I didn't say my theology is, because it comes from the Bible, but my philosophy of life. A lot of it comes And I formulated some thoughts about a lot of things in life, including relationships, including marriage relationships that come from things like that. And so my philosophy that I would apply goes something like this. When you're in a relationship with somebody, and I'm particularly talking about an adult, I'm not talking about your children, but when you're in a relationship with an adult and you have the power to make that person do something that you want them to do, don't do it. Don't make them. Because it's not good. It's not good for either one of you. Because they'll resent it. And when you're in a relationship with somebody that resents you, that's not a good relationship. And that's what always happens when you are in a controlling relationship. When one of you uses some force, some power that you have over that other person to force that person to do something that you want them to do, then not only will they resent it, but the day will come where you no longer have that power over them. And when that happens, they'll run. Or if they don't run, they will at least rebel and quit doing whatever it is that you've been forcing them to do. Now, I've seen this kind of relationship in lots of marriages. And so that leads me to conclude that it's no good if they don't want to. And so if you have the power to make somebody do something in a relationship, in an adult relationship, don't use that power. And so if we want to improve or save that relationship, then we will abandon our efforts to make someone do something, and we will focus on giving them reasons to want to do it. And that's one of the primary challenges of being a parent. I mean, we force kids to do certain things, right? Go to bed at a certain time, eat certain things, go to school, get their homework, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? But we try to do it in such a way as they mature that we want them to get to a point where this is what they want to do. And that's the purpose of discipline. It's to get that person to understand why it's to their benefit to live or to act a certain way. And that's one of the primary challenges of being a parent. And also, I believe that's some really valuable advice, particularly for married couples. But that's not why I drug you through all of this introductory stuff that I've been dragging you through here. I'm convinced that God could make you and me do anything that He wants us to do. I'm convinced He's got the power to do that. And He could have created us in such a way that we didn't have a choice. He could make us do what He wants us to do. But God's chosen not to do that. And He's chosen to create you and me with free will. And yet God wants you and me to love Him because we want to, not because we have to. And God wants us to follow Him because we want to. And God wants us to obey Him because we want to. And that's what He means when Jesus says, when I'm lifted up from the earth, I will draw all men to myself. I will give you a reason. When you see the sacrifice, me hanging on the cross, then that will hopefully motivate you to want to come to me, to follow me, to hear what I have to say. And He gives us constant motivation to want to do the things that He asks us to. God's never asked us to do anything that wasn't for our own benefit. And it takes us a while in life sometimes to recognize that, and some people go through life and they never recognize that. And so they resent everything that God wants them to do, and they rebel. It's really important in life that we get past the have to and we get to the want to. And frankly, I'm concerned about people whose relationship with the Lord is based on have to. The attitude that says, show me in the Bible where it says, I have to do this, or I can't do this. I'm really concerned about somebody with that attitude. And here's the attitude that motivates us as Christians. Ephesians chapter 5. For you were once darkness, but now you're light in the Lord. Live as children of light. For the fruit of the light consists of goodness, which means moral excellence, righteousness. The fruit of the light consists of goodness, righteousness, that means doing what is right, and truth. That is free from falsehood, free from pretense, free from deceit in our life. How many of us have things in our life that we try to keep hidden from other people? That's not living in the light. And then he adds the phrase at the end, and find out what pleases the Lord. I like that phrase. Find out what pleases the Lord. And I promise you this, young people, you will never be happy living a have-to life. You'll never be happy. You'll always resent it. And you'll always be looking for a way out until you mature to the point that you get to the want to. I'm living this way. I'm doing this because this is the way I want to live. This is what pleases the Lord. And so this is the way I want to live. So my first suggestion to you is, if you want to live a productive, secure Christian life, and if as a parent you want to have your children to mature into productive Christians, you make it your goal to grow into the want-to level of Christian growth and get past the have-to. And how do you do that? Well, you do that by consciously focusing on what God's done for you. You look at the cross and you think of what God has done for you and what God keeps doing for you every day of your life. And when you focus on that, then you will get past the have to, and it will become the motivation. This is what I want to do. If somebody loves me that much, how can I not listen to them? If God, if Jesus, who was on equality with God, voluntarily came down to this earth and suffered and died for me, why would I not want to follow somebody like that? Why would I not listen to someone like that? And so we focus on what God's done for us, and we focus on how we can use the resources that He's given us to please and serve Him, rather than focusing on the next new thing on our radar, whatever that may be, a new house, new car, new whatever. And our motivation is to please the Lord. And so for this lesson, I want to assume that we truly do want to please the Lord. And we want to show our gratitude for what He's done for us. And so I want to share with you for this lesson, and probably into another subsequent lesson, some guidelines to help us make decisions in our life that will enable us to truly please the Lord, that will result in a joyful, productive, happy, rewarding life here on earth, with the security of knowing that when we die, it's going to be even better than it's ever been. And so here are some things to consider as we face daily decisions in our life if we really want to please the Lord. So if you'll put the first one up. The first one is, does it enslave? These are just coming from Scripture. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 12 is dealing with exactly this thing. It says, all things are lawful, but I will not be mastered or enslaved by anything. And we stop and we think, what are some things in this life that enslave a person? Well, there are some that are really obvious. Things like alcohol and tobacco and drugs and gambling and pornography. And we see the results of those and how they destroy lives just all around us, right? But there are some that are less obvious. What are some things that enslave us, that we focus on food, maybe, a job, family. Jesus said if you love mother or father or husband or wife, son or daughter, houses or land more than me, you cannot be my disciple. Friends, maybe friends that we know that are not good for us, that are a bad influence on us, but we just stay there anyway. Peer pressure, grades, entertainment, pleasure. We can just keep on, right? There's any number of things in this life that we can spend our life focused on, and we can put our efforts and energy into. You know, God made man to rule over the universe, and isn't it interesting how many things in this universe rule over us? Does it enslave? Is it controlling you? Is it what you think about? Satan has a way of blinding us in slavery. We deny it. We're slaves, but we deny it. Alcoholic says, I can stop anytime I want to. Right? Addictions destroy relationships. Relationships with God, relationships with your husband or your wife, with your children, with your friends. They cause you to lose jobs. Addictions destroy relationships. And so the first question that we need to ask ourselves, and it's not just enough to ask ourselves, we have to be honest about it. We have to be able to see in ourselves what we can see in others. Does it enslave? And then the second thing is, will it be spiritually profitable? And I'm in the same scripture here, 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 12. The first part of it says, all things are lawful or permissible, the New International Version says, but not all things are profitable. Or NIV says, not all things are beneficial. And that word profitable, the original word literally means to bring together. Not all things bring together. Now, I want you to stop and think. If we had a class, we'd stop and talk about that word a while. What does it mean? What's he trying to say to us? That you have certain rights to do this, but not everything is beneficial. And so you shouldn't do those. Not everything brings things together. You know, too many of us have our life divided up into different segments. And we're not just one person. We're one person when we're here in this environment, and we're another person when we're here in this environment. And we talk this way when we're with these people, and we talk this way, and we act this way, and on and on and on. And we've got ourselves just chopped up in little pieces. But this word says, not everything is in harmony with the life that I want to live. Not everything comes together in one. And that's the way God wants us to live, so that we are consistent wherever we are. And there's not some portion of our life that doesn't fit in with the rest of our life. You know, the word for that's hypocrisy, right? You're play acting on the stage part of the time in your life. And you can get pretty accustomed to that, but it's a pretty sick way to live, really. And when you can have your whole life and everything in your life fits into that same one piece, that's the way that God wants us to live. Everything comes together into one. And so we ask ourselves a question, even though I might have the, quote, right to do this, depending on who gave us the right, but not every right that the government gives us is the right thing to do, by the way. But we ask, will it enhance my spiritual life? Will it bring me closer to God, or is it something that I really know that God doesn't approve of? Will it cultivate godliness in my life? Will it pull me further away from God? Is this the person that I want to be? Is this the person that God wants me to be? And so, will it be spiritually profitable? There's a parallel passage in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 23, and it says, all things are lawful, but not everything is constructive. And that word means to build a house. Not everything fits in the house, all right? There's lots of stuff out there, but you select certain materials to build a house. And he says everything's lawful for you, all things are, but not everything is constructive. And then 1 Corinthians 9:27, in the context of competing in athletics, he says, I beat my body and make it my slave. Do you ever say no to anything in your life that you want to do, that your body wants to do? Do you ever say, no, I'm not going to do that? I'm a Christian. I'm not going to talk that way. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to do that because I'm a Christian. And I want my life to be one piece. And I don't want to be this person over here when I'm with these friends and this person over here. This discipline presupposes a goal, a purpose. Namely, making yourself the most effective servant that you possibly can be for Christ. And in the process, making yourself the best husband, the best wife, the best parent, the best son or daughter, the best Christian example that you can possibly be. And so that's our goal in life. And so we ask ourselves, not only will it enslave, but will it be spiritually profitable? Is it going to bring me closer to God, or is it going to take me further away from God? And then the third thing, Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, having taken off every weight that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, let us run with patience the race that's marked out before us. And so I would suggest to you that we would ask ourselves the question, does it slow me down in my race? Does it slow me down? Chapter 11, just prior to that, testifies to the necessity of a life of faith. It gives all those heroes of faith, right? And then he says, having taken off, we're running a race, having taken off every weight that hinders. And the word weight is onkos. We get the word oncology from it, a very unpleasant word, right? It has to do with cancer. It has to do with a mass. And he says, we take off every onkos, every bulk, every weight that hinders us. Something that takes our attention away from the important things in life, something that diverts our priorities, something that dampens our enthusiasm, something that drains our energy. And so we ask ourselves, will this slow me down? Will this drain my energy? It can certainly be something that is not innately sinful within itself, but it can be something that's just got out of hand in our life, and we don't really need it in our life. It's not helping us be the kind of person we want. We're spending too much time on recreation or job or family or computer or hunting or friends or sports or sleeping or whatever. You know, a number of you are runners. And I know that when you run, you take off every single ounce of weight that you don't need. You don't carry extra stuff that you don't need. If you're going to carry water, you don't carry 2 gallons of water when you run, right? You figure out how much you're going to need, and that's all you carry. And you don't carry any extra weight. He says that's the way we've got to run the spiritual race. Get rid of the stuff that we don't need in our life. Too many of us are running and we are just weighted down with too much junk. And we can't run. And we get discouraged. And we get tired. And we start thinking of quitting because we got all this stuff that's pulling us off to the side over here and telling us, boy, you don't need to be running this hard. You don't have to be ridiculous about this. And we've got all this stuff in our life. And maybe we need to downsize. And maybe that's emotionally. Maybe it's some things that we've been bringing with us. Too much time on a job. Certain things are too important to us in our life that are not going to help us get to heaven. And then one last thing, 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 16. And using this as a cover for my sin. There are some freedoms that are freedoms, as a matter of fact, that we can use as a cover-up for sin. 1 Peter 2:16 says, don't use your freedom as a cover-up for evil. Don't use your freedom as a cover-up for evil. And the context there is about how we abuse freedom. And the immediate context is that it's following a command, submit to governing authorities. And it goes on to say there are no authorities that God doesn't set up and represent and so forth. And then right immediately after that, he says, don't use your freedom as a cover-up for evil. I find that an interesting context. And somebody says, are you telling me it's wrong that a guy can't have a close female friend? I've heard that in marriages a few times. Are you telling me it's wrong that a wife can't have a close male friend? You have the right to do that? Maybe so. Where's it going to go? You telling me that I can't go see that movie? It's not going to affect me. That I can't go watch a bunch of horses run? That's all I go for, is just to watch the horses run. You telling me that I don't have the freedom to go to a dance or to a bar? The Bible doesn't say that I can't. David danced before the Lord, right? Maybe a different kind of dance than what you got in mind. Am I using my freedom as a cloak for my own sinful desires? Galatians chapter 5, verse 13 says, do not use your freedom to indulge your sinful nature. Liberty easily becomes license. And you can use a freedom to hide something. By the way, I had another bird dog. A little female setter this time. There's two types of bird dogs, setters and pointers. I won't take the time to give you a lesson on them, but setters are long-haired dogs. They work in close. They like to work in thick cover. Pointers, they like to run. But I had a little female setter dog. It's the only dog that I ever had that I paid somebody else to train for me because I just didn't have the time to do it. And when I went to pick her up after a few weeks from the trainer, he didn't bring the dog out like I expected him to. He came out and he met me and he said, I got a question for you. How much would you take for that dog? And I said, well, I don't want to sell her. He said, name a price. He said, of all the dogs that I've ever trained, I've never had one that was easier to train. All you have to do is let her know what you want her to do, and she will kill herself trying to do that. And I thought about that. And I didn't sell the dog. But that's how I want the Lord to feel about me. All I have to do is let Ken know what I want, and he'll do everything within his power to do that. Find out what pleases the Lord. Boy, that's a key to life. And if you'll really, really use that, if you plan to go to heaven, if you seriously want your children and your family to go to heaven with you, then you have to get rid of everything and everyone that is not helping you get there. Focus on what God's done for you. Keep your heart and your mind focused on Jesus. Get in God's Word and stay there. A good test. Here's the end of my lesson for you. You can breathe a sigh of relief. A good test to know where you are is your attitude about spiritual things that I have to or I want to. That's a really good test where you are spiritually. Are you trying to carry something that is hindering you from running your race? I want to encourage you, whatever it is, get rid of it while we stand and sing.